Hey everyone, welcome to week 79. Today is day 4. This is Thursday. This is our final day in our week that we've decided to call Contained. These have all been reflections of painting. Did we provide answers? I don't think so. Are we going to provide answers today? I don't think so, but let's see how we do.
Okay, let's get started. This is day 4. This is our 4th day, 4th and final. Remember, we used to go till Fridays, but honestly, we were painting and editing ourselves dry, so we needed that extra day. It just makes everything seem a little more balanced. So I think that from here till the end of the year, it's going to be 4-day weeks. We're probably going to take a few weeks off whenever I have to do physical workshops. So yeah, Thursdays are going to be our final day. So for this, our final day, I thought about reaching conclusions. I thought, well, this is the final day of the week. We should be able to reach some sort of a conclusion when trying to imagine the future of painting, because I realized that that's what the week turned into. I wasn't expecting that, to be honest. I just kind of let my train of thought loose, and honestly, I just see wherever it takes me, and I go from there. And I think that beyond trying to understand the contemporary nature of painting, I'm far more interested in thinking of what's going to happen in 50, 60, or 80 years into the future. Because sadly, I think that we are at a point with painting where we're not really willing to look into the future. A lot of people in my Instagram account have commented that the future is now. That's what digital art is. That's what NFTs are. I think that beyond a change in the formal qualities of the execution of an image, which would be digital art, just going from something analog to something digital, and beyond I'm going to say superficial transformation of the art market, which is what NFTs ended up doing, it is pretty much the same art market, but on steroids. And it's probably going to have a far smaller life, I feel. But I really don't think that those two things, digital art and NFTs, which are pretty much tied together, I don't think they're that far from the way in which we understand images nowadays. I feel it's just a natural progression of these physical objects, paintings, and having them filtered through a computer screen or a phone screen and being socialized through social media apps. I think that collecting is collecting. It could be coins, stamps, paintings, or digital files. It's exactly the same thing. And I said this in my comments, but I would argue, and again, this is completely subjective. This is just about me, but I would argue that in my eyes, I feel the exact same thing when I look at a digital painting than when I do a traditional painting. I know that sounds like a sin. I'm sure somebody out there is cringing, but trust me, I totally understand what a physical painting entails. I'll give you a small example. I had never oil painted in my life before I started art school. So my first paintings were when I was 18 years old. I had never ever painted before. I used to draw, I used to do etchings, which is way too sophisticated for a kid to do. And when I started foundation painting with Toby Kahn in SVA, I remember he asked us to buy, mediums. And I had no idea how to use mediums, nothing. And to be completely honest, I think Toby was an incredible guy, and he's a super cool artist and super cool painter, but I think he was a terrible foundation painting teacher. Again, if I have to be honest, my buddy Niels Karsten, whom I graduated with, he is the foundation painting teacher, and I know that he loved Toby, but I think Niels is incredible at doing that job. But anyways, I remember when Toby Kahn had us buy linseed oil and Damar varnish, and I remember just asking people around, how do you use this? Like, I have no clue what linseed oil does aside from just spreading paint and thinning it down. But I was like, what does varnish do? I mean, this is super sticky and smelly. And I remember we had a trompe l'oeil exercise that we had to do in painting, which, by the way, come on, you can't ask for somebody who doesn't know how to paint to do a trompe l'oeil painting. That's insane. That's crazy. But I remember I was doing that and I was painting my sink. And this is one of the first paintings. I think it was the first painting where I used Damar varnish. And I remember painting from life in my bathroom using varnish. And I remember the smell of varnish. And if you guys have ever used Damar varnish in your life, you know that traditional Damar varnish has a very, very distinct smell. And every time I used varnish from then on, and years could go by without me using it because I've used tons of varnish alternatives, but every time I smell Damar varnish, my mind just immediately goes back to me painting in the bathroom of my dorm room, that terrible painting that I did of my sink. That is the sensatory power that a physical painting can have. Something as simple as the smell of Damar varnish can just transport me 25 years into the past. That's incredible. That's amazing. Again, it speaks about the physicality of paint. And I know what the sacrifice that I've been asking people to imagine entails. What do you mean a world without physical painting? I mean, the nature of painting is so intrinsically tied to the materials and the tools that make up the traditional definition of painting that we can't separate them. If you strip one away from the other, the whole thing would die. And I would say that probably not. And I guess this is where digital painting, painting in Photoshop and Procreate, those are incredible examples of how a digital image can spark some of the same emotions that you feel when you physically interact with a painting. At least for me. Again, this is completely subjective. I can only speak about my own experience. But I think that happens to me, especially, and maybe this is the caveat, especially when a painting is consumed digitally. So if I'm looking at a Rembrandt through my phone, and, this example is probably horrible because I'm using the best example of traditional painting ever, but if I'm looking at a Rembrandt through a phone, even though my brain has a ton of knowledge and experience of what a Rembrandt painting looks like because I've been lucky enough, and that's also the key word, I've been very, very lucky. And I think we sometimes forget about these things, but I've been very lucky to travel to a ton of places in this wonderful world and have been able to experience a lot of these paintings in person. But again, I've been very, very privileged to do that. Let's not forget about those things. So my brain is actually able to complete a ton of information that it has gathered through experiences, through physical experiences, when I look at a JPEG of Rembrandt in my computer screen or in my tablet or in my phone screen. That's what usually happens with the people that have some sense of what a particular painting looks like, and then we try to reignite that sensible response when we look at it through our screens. But there's an amazing thing that happens when you're not really sure if what you're looking at, for example, is like a gouache painting, or if it's a painting done in Procreate, and the brushes have enough texture information in them that it just kind of fries your brain. It turns everything upside down, and you're trying to identify, because that's what we all do. We try to categorize everything and define everything. Your brain just go nuts saying, wait a minute, is this digital or is this traditional painting? As if that's something that's absolutely necessary. But I personally love that feeling of being in limbo, of not really knowing what a painting is, but letting my body react to it as if it was a painting. I know that my heart, my body, my soul, my knowledge, my experience, my eyes, everything is reacting to this image as if it were a painting. Every single impulse that I'm getting, every single sensible response I'm getting from my body is exactly the same as if I was looking at a painting. And I think that that's my point. That's when my mind is telling me, this is a painting. This is the exact same stimuli. It's absolutely crazy, but that's what happens. And I think that that's enhanced by the fact that we are consuming it through screens and through social media. I've talked about this before, but I've even gone so far as to say that I don't think that what we see in social media, we can refer to that as paintings. And I know that kind of contradicts what I just said, but if I try to expand on that idea, it's not that they're not paintings. It's just that I think it's a broader definition of painting. They speak about something far larger and more encompassing that probably has to do with image. I think that if we saw a Venn diagram of painting and image in our brain, those two things would probably share 99.9% of their DNA. So I'm guessing that when we step into a broader definition of image, we painters specifically, we are still going to be clinging on to ideas of painting. But again, I feel that, when you look at these images through screens and social media, they are very different. The way we consume them, the way we interact with them, the way we zoom into them, those actions are very, very particular. By the way, I'm sure this has happened to a bunch of you guys, but how many of you guys have been drawing traditionally after you've been working digitally for a while, and you're going to hone in on a little detail, and this happened to Danny, by the way, like a couple of days back, and your instinct is just telling your fingers to open up and pinch. You can have a pencil and paper, and your mind is just telling you to pinch and zoom. I remember that happening to me after I did for 3 months a bunch of digital backgrounds in Photoshop for an animated short. And when I went back to painting, my brain wanted to have Command Z or Control Z available. I would make a decision, in my traditional painting, and my brain would go like, well, that didn't really go how I want it. Command Z. My brain would just send those signals constantly. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. So like I was saying at the beginning, I guess I'm far more enthusiastic when I think about the future of painting because I don't really see Photoshop or Procreate or even this three-dimensional idea of painting in VR. I don't know. I just see them as techniques. In the same way that you could do a painting in oils and you could do a painting in acrylics or you could do a painting in gouache or watercolor, you could do it in Photoshop or you could do it in Procreate or you could do it using a VR headset. To me, those things are just kind of easy, natural progressions that have to do with technology. I don't find them threatening or menacing in any way. I just think they're other ways to approach painting. That's just about it. But I guess this bigger sense of painting that I would love us as humanity to access in the future has to do with availability. For example, I hate obstacles. I absolutely abhor obstacles. For example, there's websites where they make it super hard for you to download a JPEG or a PNG of an image that you really like. And I guess in the end, they're trying to protect the copyright of that image. But honestly, there's always ways to just download an image you like. But I really dislike that some websites, they make you jump through hoops or they don't give you easy access to a high-res image, even though that image is embedded in the code. Those sort of things, I feel like, oh, come on, this is not cool. It's totally not cool. Like, honestly, there's nothing cooler than finding a really nice high-res image of an artist that you like, and you just right-click it, and it says Save As, and you can save it as a JPEG, and that's it. It's yours to enjoy and yours to use. That's what we've been doing with our project. Nothing is behind a paywall. None of these videos have a join or they're underneath a patron tier, and I know there's tons of people that have to do those things. That's the way other people make a living. That's totally fine. But when we wanted to do this, we wanted to make it available because we can't be here expressing our thoughts about accessibility and then making everything about the content we produce inaccessible. That wouldn't make any sense. So our views are super simple. Like, we're going to do paintings and they're all going to be the same price. They're $250. That's the easiest thing to do. You don't even have to think about it anymore because it's so weird when two paintings that are exactly the same size, and this happens everywhere. This happens with comic book pages, this happens with illustrations, this happens with paintings, it happens everywhere. It's like, hey, these two paintings, same technique, same surface, same size, same painter, two different prices. It's like, what the hell? Why are they two different prices? Are you telling me that the cheaper one is worse? Is that what you're saying? Hey, you should buy the more expensive one because that's a better painting. And the artist is admitting they only gave like 60% on that second cheaper painting. So that's why the price is cheaper. No, come on. I mean, if you did a great painting, great. That's awesome. But when you sit down and work, you're always trying to do a good job. And I think that acknowledging that you're always trying to do a good job, that you're always trying to be consistent, it's a really nice thing. Again, it takes a ton of questions out of the equation and you just say they're all the same price. They're all exactly the same price. This is such a cool way to approach pricing because it's just super, super easy. It's easy to communicate. It's easy to understand and you know exactly what to expect. And that's kind of awesome. Almost every single decision that we've made with our project is maybe not exemplifying what painting is going to be in the future because that's ridiculous, but it's trying to push some of the values that we hope at least painting and people that consume painting and the way painting is socialized could embrace in the future, could consider in the future. And I think that that road of accessibility is so vast. I mean, with our tiny little project, we're only traveling in this minute lane, but the possibilities are endless. I think it's our job to see what we can do for painting in the future. What we noticed from this past year and a half, where we were not able to go to galleries and we were not able to go to museums, is that, yes, those spaces need people. And I know people feel the need to also go to those places, but those places wouldn't really make sense. They would just be closed private collections if they didn't have people activating that collection. And I'll say it, nothing can replace the experience that you get when you have an incredible work of art just inches from your face. It is something absolutely incredible. But again, how many people in this world are lucky enough to be able to experience those things? Not many. I think that all these months that we spent navigating these virtual spaces and experiencing images through social media, through our screens, something good has to come out of that. It's not all bad. Museums are not perfect institutions, and especially museums that you have to pay for. That's not cool. Every single big museum in the world should be free. That's my opinion on that. Super simple. And people would say, oh, come on, that's crazy. That would be super expensive. There's so many costs to maintain these huge collections of art. And I always think, really, what's the cost? Like 100 missiles and 10 submarines? I think we can afford it. Anyways, that was the rant for this week. As far as the subject matter for this painting, it couldn't be more trivial. It's just an elastic hairband that Danny uses. Obviously, that's not mine. I would have no use for any of that. And to be honest, I just saw it exactly like this in the bathroom, and I just loved that it looked like a Mobius band. I loved that the shadow it projected was a symbol of infinity. I love the almost imperceptible little strands of hair. I loved everything about it. I thought it was the most poetic image that I could use to try and speak about the obstacle that thinking about painting as something that's monolithic and eternal can be. And I think we have to tear down that definition if we want to move forward. That's going to be it for this week. Join us next week where we're going to have a new theme. As we always say at the end of the week, Danny, Samu, Fer, and myself, we're super grateful for you letting us be your company, even if it's for 15, 20 minutes a day. And all we ask is that next week, you let us be your company once again. So we'll see you guys next week. Love you guys. Bye.